or put lots of armour on and walk slowly but feeling better protected, and then knowing they're going to try and shoot you, drop things on your head and otherwise trying to spoil your day, and then obviously light the fuse and get away while they're still trying to kill you.
What would he be lighting it with? Would he be fumbling with matches while he was here?
He's going to have a piece of burning cord called slow match between his fingers, which really is cord soaked in saltpetre. You dry it out and you light it.
Your return journey was just as dangerous. Petards were so unpredictable, assistants were sometimes blown up as they tried to run away, hoist by their own petards. But what were the chances of getting hit by a musket or missile while running from your own lines to a gate? I wasn't prepared to die for the programme, but I wanted to analyse just how risky it could be.
We're conducting a bit of an experiment. I'm going to see whether I can get from here right to those gates down there without being hit by musket fire. We've got 4 musketeers up on the walls who've exchanged their muskets for paintball, and I'm going to be protected by 2 flankers. This is Dave and Andrew from our production office. Thanks, mate. Because in Stuart times, the petardier would have had some kind of soldiers running alongside him, but not only have I got to try and avoid being killed, but I would have had to have placed my petard strategically to ensure that I actually blasted the door off its hinges and didn't just create a little hole about 4 foot up, which would have been of no use to anybody. Can you do my mask for me? Okie doke. Right. Ready, Andy?
Ready?
Go!
Adrenaline carried me through to the gate, and as there weren't going to be any real explosions, I had a flare to show that I'd made it.
Done it! Done it! Done it, Andy. Well done. Well done, mate. Hey!
You didn't do it.
What do you mean we did it?
Well, look down your leg, down your arm.
Yeah.
You didn't make it. They dropped you about halfway in. You're not dead, but you're bleeding to death out there.
Oh, but it felt so good. You know what was extraordinary about it is I thought you'd be ducking around and weaving around.
You can't.
When you're under fire like that, you just get your head down and bush you go.
Absolutely.
I have to say, it does hurt like hell.
Does it?
All the way down this side.
Well, that's where they got you, from that right-hand side as you came in. And look at the petard as well. Look at that.
Would that have exploded if it had been hit by muskets?
No, it wouldn't do, because the musket balls aren't hot enough. But they may well have gone straight through the board and into you anyway, and that was against your chest.
So I'd just be lying there bleeding, wouldn't I?
I'm afraid so. Good attempt, though.
Yeah.
I think we proved just how vulnerable the petardier's assistant was in Stuart times, but then so was the king. When the parliamentarians broke the siege of Oxford in 1646, Charles I was put on trial and eventually beheaded. But he wouldn't even have got to the dock if it hadn't been for the 2 nameless men who took him there. Not in his usual regal carriage, but in the Stuart equivalent of a black cab, the sedan chair. Being a sedan chair bearer was a really tough job. They weren't just cabbies, they had to be the engine and the wheels as well. For wealthy Stuarts, sedan chairs became the most fashionable way to get around town.
You could either hire them from set taxi ranks, initially in London and then further afield. There was one under the statue, or around the statue of Charles I in Trafalgar Square today. Or you could book one for going to a performance or something in the evening.
Could you hail it like a cab?
Oh yes, you could hail it like a cab, but it would only be available if it was being carried the reverse way round to show that, well, you had to show that it was empty.
Oh, I see. So that like the cab having the light on.
Yes.
They're pretty heavy, aren't they?
Well, this one is quite light. In fact, it's about £66.
That's quite a lot to carry.
Which.
What's this thing for?
These are the straps.
Why did you need those? Can you just carry them like that?
Well, you could carry an empty one, but probably only about 100 or 200 metres, and then you start pulling your arms off. So the straps take the weight, and your arms used for negotiation round the corners, hailing people.
Must have been pretty difficult to manoeuvre this with poles this long.
Yes, in the next century they got another foot longer.
Why are they so long?
Well, really, when they converted from the original portable chair and they enclosed it, the person on the back couldn't see where they were going. So you needed to stand further back so that you could see, for instance, if you're looking at a flight of steps or some obstacle on the road, when it actually is.
Sedan chairs were particularly popular during bad weather, so the bearers had to trudge through the wet and the cold. Slipping on ice was a real risk, so householders used to chuck their ashes onto the cobbles to provide a foothold. But there were worse dangers.
There was also aggro from the footpads of the day, the street robbers, the carjackers of today.
What, they try and mug the chairman?
If it was a private one, you had to tackle the chairman first. But if it was just a taxi, we would stand back and almost open the door and let them, you know, mug the person inside for their jewellery, their watches.
So these guys are trotting along. Someone comes, opens the door. Give us.
That's right. Well, in fact, there's one instance of someone being skewered with a sword right through the leather here.
Oh, I've really got to have a go at this. Andrew, Tim, from the Oxford Uni Rugby Club. How much do you weigh?
About 17.5 stone.
About 16.5.
I chose the right people, didn't I? Right, you can go in. You're the lighter one. You're going to go on the back?
Certainly will.
Right. So, presumably I have to lock this bloke in.
Indeed.
Right, there you are. Tim, you got your strap on, Andrew?
I have, Tony.
Right. Is this the right way round?
Yep, just put that over.
Just like that. Hang on, Andrew, just get my straps on.
Okay.
Right, you ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, lift! Oh, it's not as bad as I thought.
No.
Hang on, I'm having a talk. You've got the weight on the shoulders, haven't you, rather than
that's right.
the hands. Right, that sort of trot, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we're just coming to a corner.
Yep, watch the bollard.
Right. Did these things have lights on them for after dark?
Oh yes, you used to carry them on the side of the pole, or if you were wealthy, you could have a link boy and employ one to carry them on the front.
Oh, he's going faster than me. Can you slow down a little bit?
Oh, they always push hard from the back unless you ask them.
Not half. Was it the same fare whether someone was fat or thin?
Oh yes. Yes, you have to pay the same fare, yeah.
And uphill or downhill?
They changed that in Bath. Uphill was more expensive.
We're coming to a main road now. Hang on, I'm turning left. It's a bit like having a ladder, isn't it?
You got to swing, yes. Yeah, you got to swing round. That's right.
All right. I don't want to go out on the road. Oh.
You're doing well, you're doing well.
Starting to flag now.
That's all right, in London. London, 52 miles, yeah.
Huge wigs became emblems of the Stuart period. Charles II's wigs were almost as famous as his affair with Nell Gwyn. But big wigs made from real hair often contained unwelcome sitting tenants. Evicting them was the task of my next worst job, the nitpicker.
If I call someone a nitpicker, I mean someone who's fairly pedantic. But in Stuart times, it was a real profession, wasn't it?
It was, and it was an important job. People had nits and lice on the body and nits in the hair, and we had to get rid of them. And there's lots of evidence of people who worked in families or would go from house to house with a specific job of getting nits out of people's hair.
All right, I'm a Stuart noble. How'd you get the nits out of my hair?
What's difficult about it is there's curls here, and these curls will hold the little tiny eggs that nits make, and we've got to get them out. So here we've got a lovely...
It's a knit comb, isn't it? It's like the ones that we used to use when my kids were at primary school.
That's right. And this early style is the same exactly as now. This one's made of bone, however. And the little tiny teeth work in exactly the same way because guess what? They're the same nits, laying the same size eggs, and we've got to draw them out.
Yeah, you get all the eggs, don't you, all the way along there.
That's right.
That, yeah.
And we also used lavender oil in the hair, and that also is still used.